So, hello, this is Dr. P. Mark Taylor, and we're going to talk for a minute about the parts of a dissertation because we're going to get ready to write it, so we probably should know what it's going to look like. And there is a dissertation handbook, and I will post that in the course resources. And here is the quantitative dissertation recommended format. There's this first section that comes before chapter 1, and it's all stuff that you can't really do yet because you don't even know. So skip that section for now. The second part, you're already playing with the ideas of what is the problem I want to solve, what is the reason I want to solve it, what might my questions be. So we're going to wrestle with a lot of that. But in order to do that, we have to work through the literature. So we're actually going to start, and you've probably already done this, you've probably already read research on your topic. So what you're really doing is just continuing that process to read and flip back between chapter 2 and chapter 1, where you're thinking about why and how you're thinking about it, which is the theoretical foundation or theoretical framework and conceptual framework. So we'll kind of go back and forth between chapter 2 and chapter 1 a lot at the front end of this class because it's the front end of your dissertation. But it's always easier to write chapter 2 and then sort of back up and fill in the info on chapter 1. In chapter 3, that's the methodology, and that would be the end of your proposal. And I will give you very more in-depth worksheet to work through to know what to include in chapter 3 and start coaching on the writing of that in this class. Chapter 4 and chapter 5 you can only do during your dissertation, so we're not going to talk about those other than to say what they are and what to expect. Chapter 4 is where you just give the results. You don't say what it means. You don't do any interpreting unless you're just stating what the evidence is, what the numbers come out, and whether that's statistically significant. You can answer the question regarding the hypothesis or hypotheses, but you can't have an opinion yet. In chapter 5, that's where you get to actually have an opinion, be an interested participant, and say, this evidence leads me to believe that we need to study this more in depth because blah, blah, blah happened in my dissertation. And here are recommendations for further study. And okay, so you can't have an opinion until chapter 5. And even then you have to keep it closely related to the evidence. Okay, so that's the parts. And there are parts of a qualitative dissertation also in your handbook. So going through this, you don't have to have it memorized or jot it down. Same first section, similar chapter 1 in a lot of ways. We might go back and forth on something, but chapter 2, the theoretical lens and related that's again your theoretical and conceptual framework. And here that ended up in a different spot in qualitative as it did in quantitative. It's not necessary that you have it exactly in this order, but to qualitative people it generally makes more sense. That's really the big difference. Chapter 3, methodology, same stuff, just a whole different way of thinking about what's important to establish trustworthiness. So it's all the things that you expect and that we talked about in 751. And the similar chapter 4 and chapter 5, which is, here's what we found. It's a little more cloudy. Chapter 4 is a little more cloudy than qualitative, basically because you have to interpret while you're analyzing. And in the case of quantitative, you can't interpret. You just run the numbers and find out what happened, and you interpret after the fact. So in qualitative chapter 4, you might actually have a little bit of an opinion, but it's going to be extremely well grounded in the data. And then you can have a more in-depth opinion and talk about what it might mean in the final chapter. So anyway, the parts of a research study are pretty much the same for all studies. We do have alternative dissertation formats, but we won't look at that in depth in this class. But what we are going to do, according to the schedule, in week 1, and at the end of this week and the beginning of next week, we're going to analyze research publications and look at the proposal components that they would have had. I know at least one of them actually was from a dissertation, so that person definitely had a in-depth proposal written up before ever sitting down to write the article. So we're going to analyze that so that we can practice thinking about what are the important pieces of the proposal. That'll give us a goal for what kind of thing we're going to write up in this class. So that's why we're doing that. Then we have the 2 purposes of lit review, and I'll go into more details on what to think as you're going through reviewing more literature and how to develop a theoretical framework and conceptual framework. And we will work on your specific questions. So we've already got ideas. You may have questions, but we're going to refine those. We're going to write very specific questions and refine those in the week after that. And then we'll move on to methodology and begin writing the first round, the short version of your dissertation proposal. So that's where we're at. That's where we're going. I should say the last thing that we'll do is we'll do a peer review for trustworthiness on each other's work, and then we'll finish it up. You'll submit that to TaskStream, but we'll also do a presentation to local colleagues. If you've had my research classes, you've seen something like this before, where you'll grab a live audience somewhere near you. Only has to be a couple people, so that you can present your research proposal and be practiced up in arguing for why it's an important question and that the methodology makes sense. All right, so there you go. And so let's go back up to week 1 and finish this out. This is the very, very, very quick parts of a research proposal. Like I said, the parts are in the dissertation handbook, which I will post. And so the next thing you need to do is discussion post 2, which I'm going to post here in just a minute. And one more thing, and it's not on the schedule, is the APA certificate class. Some of you have taken this before, and I have put it on the lesson online for this course. So in lesson 1, you'll see the welcome, you'll see the DP1, and then you'll see the APA course certificate. Somewhere during this course, if you have not already completed it, you need to go to that link, and it is a live link, and you need to go through it, pay the $80, go through it, get a minimum of 80% so you can get that passing certificate, and then put it in the Dropbox, which is linked right below there. Yeah, I put this in week 1. You can do it anytime you want. As this says, if you have already completed the course, just post the certificate. You do not need to redo it. So find your certificate, and if you haven't done it yet, go do it. All right. So I'm about to post discussion 2 to get that party started and get us to finish out the week. And I will see you all online.